News Talk 95.1 FM and 790 AM, KFYO. Tuned in this morning to KFYO Mornings with Dave King and Matt Martin. We had been telling the audience, of course, that we were going to have the sheriff in here at 7:30, but he arrived a little early, and so why not talk to him about some other things before we get into some county questions and county sheriff's office questions after 7:30. The sheriff was telling us that he's been hog hunting, and we just did the feral hog story. So, Sheriff, good morning.
Well, good morning. It's good to be here, guys.
So, are you kind of aware of the scope of the feral hog situation that we have in Texas?
Oh, absolutely. You see and hear about it all the time. Anybody that's got a ranch, just is actually absolutely torn up with them all the time. And you see all the efforts out there is trying to eradicate them, bring them down some, so that we don't see the property damage and the other things that come as a result of them. Yeah.
Well, and this story we did said that there's a human blood thinner that is now they're touting to be the thing that will eliminate them. Apparently, it is not so dangerous, at least to most other wildlife, but it is deadly to the hogs. And with everything, I guess nothing's perfect, but maybe that's the thing that may take care of it. Because I do know, in talking to landowners like you said, they're extremely disruptive and destructive.
Right.
And there's a lot of people that are out hunting them. I've been wanting to go hunting them, and I've just never have. But that's one thing. I'm not much on shooting deer since I don't eat venison. Right. I kind of, my own personal thing is if you're just going to go out and kill something, if you eat it and you enjoy dining on it, that's fine. But I don't really go shoot things just to be doing it. But a hog, I would.
Right.
Because they are a nuisance. They're destructive, and there's a point to killing those things, and as many of them as you can. Have you seen this pen that I had described? I don't know if you'd heard that it's a large pen that they raise, and they put a feeder in the middle, and they are able through remote control to when maybe 100 to 200 hogs gather around this feeder, they're able to drop this fence around them and capture all of them. That's one thing, but it hasn't really made much of a dent in the population.
Yeah, I think it's just the thing. They're so prolific out there that anything they're trying to do, we're trying to catch up at this point. And I don't know. I'm a little bit of a fan of sci-fi movies, and every time you try to introduce something to eradicate something else, you end up with a mutation in there somehow or another. So I'd urge some caution in there before doing too much of that. But again, like I said, we go out at least once or twice a year trying to hunt some down, and they're a challenge. That's one thing a lot of people don't understand too, is they're a challenge to get. They've got excellent senses, excellent hearing. To even creep up and get close to where you can get a good shot off is a challenge.
And they love to hide in the really thick thickets where it's hard to get to.
Well, and like I said, you're going to give yourself up long before they will. Trying to move in proximity of them.
Well, that's the whole thing about hunting, isn't it? Is trying to fox out the game, and wearing camouflage and all, and trying to beat them, because they are all very cunning by nature. You're in their environment.
That's exactly right.
Well, you should wear like a pig suit. See if you can sneak up.
Yeah,
on
you
them.
think that would work?
No, but
maybe the Duck Dynasty guys come up with a pig call or something.
There you go. See if you can get them out. Come and get them.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? 7:25 this morning as KFYO Mornings moves along with Dave King and Matt Martin. We have got a lot of good stories, talking with Sheriff Kelly Rowe. So how are things in general going down with the county of Lubbock? You deal mostly with county things.
Sure. Well, everything's going really well. We're busy, and that's a good thing. But, we're dealing with all the things that are coming with a bustling city that's doing very well, is certainly growing in all directions, and that's certainly increasing our activity up a lot, particularly out towards the southwest and in those areas like that. But really, like I said, things are good. We've got solid staff. They do a great job every day. I pay close attention to, our attrition and retention and those types of things. And, we're actually to a point with the detention center, which is, historically unheard of, that we're wait listing for jail positions, and that's a good place to be. And like I said, not too long ago, I told you we were always on the hunt. We can't seem to get ahead on those types of things, but really overall, I think things are going very, very well.
Well, and that's a good thing. Listen, this morning I saw an interesting and almost unbelievable report early this morning on the news that federal crime statistics had just been released, I guess late yesterday or early this morning, and it showed that nationwide that crime is down a tremendous amount. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've seen this latest one.
I haven't seen the latest one yet, but...
Well, it was down dramatically is the way it was being reported, and I don't want to quote the numbers, but because I'll probably get it wrong. But are we seeing crime statistics decline here in Lubbock?
In some cases there are, but there's it's cause and effect. In the case of the sheriff's office, our ability to get more patrol units out and operating, obviously we see a direct impact on the amount of burglaries that are happening. A few short years ago, if you that's something you were up to and you were going to, look for what you would assume might be an easy target to burglarize, hit a business or a home, residents in the county, because the likelihood of even seeing a sheriff's deputy or a patrolman out was a heck of a lot less than it would be if you were in the city limits where there's a higher concentration of officers. So being able to plus those numbers up, that's what I look at and, very carefully is how are we seeing true reductions in burglaries and those types of things? Unfortunately, what we do see and we have been seeing going up has been the narcotics and that type of stuff. That's why you've heard me talking a lot about that over the past year and a half or so, just because that problem has just blown up.
Yeah. Well, we're going to take a break here, and when we come back, we'll get into some of the topics that specifically we wanted to discuss with you this morning. 7:28 right now is the time, so if you're needing to get to work at 8, get a hustle on. 49 degrees, high today, 85 in the Hub City. And we will be back and talk more specifically with Sheriff Kelly Rowe, Lubbock County, after this. And we're back to News Talk 95.1 FM and 790 AM, KFYO. 7:35 AM on this Wednesday morning with KFYO Mornings with Dave King and Matt Martin. And as promised, here at 7:35 is Sheriff Kelly Rowe, Lubbock County Sheriff Kelly Rowe. And, of course, he's Kelly, you've been in the news a lot lately.
I have been.
On the front page of the paper today. I think you were yesterday or day before, and then before that.
Some hot topics out there.
A local celebrity. Of course, the big national news right now is building the wall and trying to stop illegal immigration. And then what do we do with all the illegal immigrants who are here? And one side says that we are being just evil to send them back. And the other side says that we have to send back those that are breaking, well, I can't say breaking the law because they're all breaking the law, but those who have committed
additional offenses.
And it seems to me like that is certainly a reasonable and rational thing to do. And we have these sanctuary cities. Mm-hmm. This, you have to understand, you're in law enforcement. This stuff is, you deal with it all the time. You understand it. But people like me, the average citizen, this is too much to get your head around.
It is, in some cases.
Because I cannot begin to comprehend and understand exactly what's going on. The sanctuary city thing, to me, makes absolutely no sense. And, of course, the one thing I want to ask you, is Lubbock a sanctuary city?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Those are decisions that are being made by city councils, by commissioners' courts, and even, sadly, in some cases, law enforcement officials, counterparts, to me, around not only the state but the nation, that are making, practical decisions not to enforce, not to work with federal immigration authorities and those types of things. In fact, some of the legislation that's been, has been talked about over the last number of sessions, actually originated in a set of language that basically created a prohibition that a city council, any political subdivision, or county commissioner's court or whatever could not put into any ordinance or rule or affect policy towards their specific law enforcement organizations to prohibit them from cooperating with federal immigration authorities. And those
but the laws on the books says that local law authorities are to are to cooperate with ICE, which is the federal immigration.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's there's no mandate in there. But again, when you look at a situation like we're in Lubbock, Texas, and we're out where we are, having those partnerships with those agencies for a number of different reasons. Again, when we're dealing with, transnational narcotic trafficking organizations, we need that federal support to be 100% effective in trying to shut those types of things down.
Right.
And, so having a partnership with the agencies that can identify these individuals, that, can deal with them appropriately once they, the criminal justice system is through with them, is paramount. But, again, like I said, we don't have to do it. There's no mandate out there. But our oath of office is very clear. It doesn't leave any room for equivocation. When it says, I will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all of the duties incumbent upon me, and will to the best of my ability preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States and of this state. There's not any room there for, kind of to break away into, today we're not going to enforce this, or we're not going to cooperate over here.
That's not America.
It's just not.
We live in a country that if you don't like the law, you change it.
Right.
And it just seems to me like we are violating that very principle.
To me, and especially as law enforcement, that's where, I at least apply a different standard, because again, we're not in the legislative business. Typically speaking, if I have the news media or somebody come to me and want to talk to me or get my thoughts on some pending legislation out there, I'll usually revert them right back to and say, if you want to talk about what's going on with X as it's moving through the Capitol, talk to the legislators, talk to the senator, talk to their state reps.
So you don't want to get involved in the
exactly. I'll talk. I'll tell them now. If it becomes law and the governor signs it in, I'll be more than happy to talk to you about it then, and what the impacts are and how it's going to affect how we do our business every day. But in terms of, like I said, but you actually hit the point. You hit it on the head in the sense that, like I said, we're not as law enforcement in that business. We're in the business of enforcement and ensuring that our communities are as safe as they possibly can be for their citizens.
Yeah. So, or you can work to change the law.
So when you get a prisoner that has an ICE detainer on them and they're to be released, what's the process in that to make sure that ICE knows that they're being released and can come take them? And how long does it normally take ICE to do that?
Okay, well, there's two things in play. Excuse me. Two things in play. If an individual's been identified at some point during their contact with law enforcement, whether it's been on the front end, in the case of what made news yesterday, once they've been arrested and brought in and committed to the jail, and there's a determination by ICE to put a hold on them or a detainer. The hold basically is there presuming that the individual will be released from the county jail at some point, whether they bond out, whether they satisfy misdemeanor charges, whatever the case might be, or cases may be dismissed. You just never know. Detainers, on the other hand, generally presume the individual is probably going to be seeing some long-term incarceration, whether it be state or federal prison. Those detainers are placed in their files, and they continue with them until they have completely satisfied whatever convictions they've received. In normal case, if we have some, and these numbers aren't very significant. I think we ran the numbers for 2016. I think we had 124 of these cases last year, 2016. But on the typical hold, basically it says that ICE has 2 days, not including weekends or holidays, to come pick them up upon notification that they're being released. And as a courtesy, we provide that hold for them until they get there. And here locally, we've never had an issue.
How do you hold them past what they're in jail for?
Well, that's it. That's the hold itself is the request saying hold them until we can get them.
So if you get that request from ICE, they're saying, I know he's supposed to be released Tuesday for whatever it is he did, but you hold him
and we'll come get him Tuesday afternoon from you,
or Wednesday,
And
okay.
So and then they will take them
because they have charges against him already.
Well,
they're looking for him.
They're the ones responsible for handling anything regarding immigration, naturalization, and those types of things. So what happens to them, a lot of that is civil in nature. But again, once they've taken them, they'll go do it. In fact, I always tell a lot of folks that in the conversations I've had, the vast majority of individuals that they've come and picked up and gone, they've actually gotten them back into legal status. Didn't end up turning into a deportation.
Yeah. Well, interesting. And when we come back, The big question I want to ask is I want you to explain to me sanctuary cities. What is the logic? What are they thinking? Why are they doing it? This is interviewing Sheriff Kelly Rowe of Lubbock County this morning, and you're tuned into KFYO Mornings with Dave King and Matt Martin. It is 7:43 right now, 49 degrees, high today 85, and we'll be back with more of the Sheriff after this. KFYO Mornings with Dave King and Matt Martin, 7:47. As you are getting up, better hustle it up if you have to be at work at 8. But take us with you in your car or wherever, or your mobile app, your Radio Pup app, and you can listen to us on your iPhone anywhere that you can get cell service, of course. Well, we're visiting this morning with Lubbock County Sheriff Kelly Rowe, and as I said, when we come back, we wanted to, let's remind everyone, Matt.
Yeah, if you have a question for the sheriff, make sure you give us a call at 770-5790 or 1-800-687-0790.
4 minutes.
So,
okay.
Yeah,
if you want to talk to the sheriff and leave him a question. Now, as I said, the thing I want to know is the sanctuary city does not make sense to me. I am, of course, not a sheriff. I'm not an elected official. I don't understand why a city would want to poke the federal bear with a stick. I what is it with the city? We have the Travis County Sheriff, a lady, who is basically laying down in front of the train and saying that she is not going to participate with ICE, and of course Trump is saying he's going to take millions of dollars away from the county. Can't do that. They can't.
Well, the state's doing the same thing. The governor's office is doing the same thing to Travis County.
So ultimately, Travis County is going to work with ICE.
Well, I would assume so. Ultimately, the funding usually always gets things moving.
Is the sheriff of Travis County just grandstanding?
Well, it's hard to say. I've not even met her yet. I had a great relationship with her predecessor, who navigated these situations quite well. We understand the politics of Travis County.
Yeah,
we understand, where the party, which party strengths are there. And I think that has a lot to do with it. I mean, when you really break it down and you look at these places like Dallas's county commissioners court just passed a proclamation last week, I believe it was, that talked about, Dallas is going to welcome everyone, so on and so forth. I don't understand it. And, when the Sheriff's Association of Texas was called up to testify, our legislative chairman was called to testify on SB 4, which is, the state bill on sanctuary cities, and basically told the Senate committee on that this is 253-1. 253 sheriffs are in support of the legislation. One is not. And, and I make this, issue, point in this too, that, the vast majority, probably 95% or better of the Valley sheriffs in Texas are Hispanic. So when, there's a lot of
the Valley, you talk about
the Southern Valley going down
Rio Grande Valley.
Right, exactly. Are Hispanic sheriffs who support and work with ICE every day. And so, when there's a lot of, when people are quick to throw out racial things and say this is all, a bunch of racist stuff going on and everything else, I say, look to the Valley, because again, these guys aren't resistant to this. They see what's happening every day. They understand the impacts of what's happening with these individuals that are making it across, coming into their jurisdictions, and what they're having to deal with. So again, like I said, you see some place like Travis that, again, I don't have a good, answer for you on why do they choose to do it. Outside of, like I said, you've got to look at the politics of the communities that are making those decisions.
I mean, that's all fine and good, but why would they ever do it in the first place and risk losing all these millions? I mean, what do you have a sense of what is in their head as to why they can't win a fight? They can't win this fight against the feds.
I think it's like a lot of things, Dave. I mean, I don't think people, and whether it's those types of decision makers or whatever, are really getting down and looking at what are we facing with this. And I like to tell people, it's kind of to set the table a little bit. I took a tour of the border last year, about this time last year, the Rio Grande Valley sector, which is basically the McAllen, Edinburgh area down there, busiest sector in the United States, according to Border Patrol. While we were there, we had some briefings given to us, and what's important, and the takeaways that I got from that was they're intercepting per week down there, or were then 2,500 to 2,600 per week. They're intercepting
that they're
getting. But what was interesting about that number was Well, we may need to come back after the break.
No, go ahead.
Well, anyway,
Go ahead.
what was interesting about that was that 52% of those that are apprehended every week, 52% are classified OTM, other than Mexican, coming in from 128 different countries from around the world.
And I have heard that, and the majority of them come in from South America, south of Mexico.
Like I said, 128 different countries around the world.
Yeah.
And
when we think of the border, we think of Mexico and Mexicans.
And you assume
and it's not.
No, it's like
the majority are others.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's what can be a little exciting. Well, we do want to hold you back for. I knew this was going to take longer than 2 breaks because I've got a few other things I want to talk to you about. And glad to have Sheriff Kelly Rowe with us on this morning on KFYO Mornings with Dave King and Matt Martin. It is 7:53 a.m. as we move on along, and we'll be back with more of Sheriff Kelly after this break. News Talks 95.1 FM and 790 AM, KFYO. This is KFYO Mornings with Dave King and Matt Martin. It is 7:57 a.m. on a Wednesday morning, and we're talking with Lubbock County Sheriff Kelly Rowe. And we've got so many things to talk about, and the main thing that we wanted to talk about was this story right here, this press release that you gave, where tell us about it.
Right. Well, again, we were approached by Immigration Custom Enforcement back last summer and asked about if we would have interest in participating in about a 20-year-old program known as the 287G, which in essence puts us in a position where we can get some of our jail staff credentialed, through ICE, and get them the access and equipment to databases and whatnot to be able to identify individuals once they've entered our jail. So they've been arrested, they've come to jail, and once they're going through that booking and intake process, if there's some indicators start appearing that an individual may not have legal status in this country, they can do the follow-ups.
And just to pause just for a second here, when we're talking about the Lubbock County Jail,
right?
Okay, so this could be an arrest made by a deputy sheriff or a LPD,
right? Or DPS or anybody else that we serve, or FBI.
They bring them to your jail for booking,
right?
Okay. We're clear.
Yep. So again, this just and as I had indicated earlier, we do have field offices here for ICE, for Border Patrol, and some of those, but they're very small offices, and they have very big regions of responsibility that they've got to keep up with. So this just adds an additional force multiplier to give to be able to better identify these individuals and let the federal authorities do what they need to do.
Okay, well, this is a hard break coming up here at 8:00, and so we're going to have to take it, and we're going to have to hold you over again because there's just a lot of stuff we want to ask you. KFYO Mornings with Dave King and Matt Martin, and we are going to it's 7:59. Well, 8:00. Let's just call it 8:00. 49 degrees outside. High today, 85 in the Hub City. We'll be back with more of Sheriff Kelly after this. 8:07 right now on KFYO Mornings with Dave King and Matt Martin, and we're talking to Lubbock County Sheriff Kelly Rowe, and had an interesting conversation this morning. We also have a listener who has called Kelly, Sheriff, and he had a few questions. He says, what is the population of the Lubbock Detention Center? What % of those are illegal, and what are the taxpayers paying to keep them there?
Well, and again, the total size of the detention center is 1,512, and we average anywhere from around 1,050 to 1,150 on any given day. The actual number of those individuals that are quote unquote illegal is actually fairly small. Again, like I said, last year we looked at the numbers of total number of holds that were placed on individuals out at the facility during 2016 was 124. So it wasn't a big number considering we book in close to 20,000 people a year out there.
Wow.
The other half of it is, and it's always important to remember, that individuals who are coming into the jail aren't coming solely in on immigration violations. They're coming in because they violated the law in some other way, right. Whether it be DWI, domestic violence, you name the list, it's going to be in there. And then at some point during the point of arrest or the point of booking and commitment into the jail, they're identified as illegal. But they're, anybody that has one of those holds placed is going to answer to whatever state and federal charges they have first, and then are handed back over to be dealt with.
Now tell me this:
done.
as soon as they're processed through your jail for the offense that they have been charged with, and ICE then says hold them, ICE pays for their the feds will pay for their
right
for whatever time.
Basically, it's a different pot of money, but it's still tax money that's coming in to house them. And we do not, and I tell this a lot, we do not hold immigration prisoners, of any kind, for any length of time, because once you go over 72 hours, the standards that they expect are just unachievable, and it's not worth the quote-unquote revenue coming into the county to house ICE prisoners long-term due to the headaches they require that you maintain and manage for them. So, again, we're short-term housing only. That gap, that 2-day, 48-hour gap from the time they have satisfied local charges and have nothing else pending to the handoff over to them for ICE to deal with them accordingly.
Okay, a different subject. We've SWAT's been busy lately. Is SWAT a county or Lubbock City?
We both have teams.
So has that been your team that's been out here lately?
Well, again, for our part in the matter, and keep in mind the county is the depository of all warrants. So every warrant filed in the courthouse from all of the different courts, district down to JPs, come to us for processing, for entry into the systems, and then ultimately it's one of our it's our part of our SWAT team that goes out every day and works to serve those.
We've had them out 3 days in a row, I think.
At least 2
days in a row.
And they're out there every day.
They've been busy lately. And another topic I do want to get on before we finish this break is police chases.
Okay,
this is my own pet peeve. I think police chases, and this is just coming from me personally, should be ended.
Not from me.
Matt believes the other. Matt believes the other, but we have now killed 3 people in police chases in the last 2 years, and we have how many have we injured? I'm talking about innocent civilians,
right?
That have been run over by some idiot running from a policeman.
Well, and that's that is a challenging question, and we look at it and we review it, and of course we apply lots of discretion to the individuals out there to only pursue in cases where safety can be is monitored as close as possible. We see the times these things will start. They get if they get anywhere even remotely close to a school, you'll see them called off as an example. Or if there's a densely populated, where you get a lot of foot traffic and those types of things, vehicular traffic, if it's depending on where it's going.
So whose discretion?
It's the officers, the officers that are initiating the thing.
Well, we had one here just a couple of weeks ago here on the loop in Indiana, where it was reported that a deputy sheriff was chasing someone, and then the chase was engaged by LPD.
No, the LPD didn't have anything to do with that. What had taken place was that, and again, this was a stolen vehicle. When the officers attempted to make traffic stop, the suspect fled on it. There's a little more to that story, interestingly enough, for the perspective of the suspect after she was apprehended a day or two later. But neither here nor there, when one of our marked units moved in to actually take over the pursuit from an unmarked unit, that's where basically the unmarked vehicle swerved to avoid getting hit, and the accident ensued after that. Unfortunate as it was, but those types of things can happen. And again, like I said, it was initiated because of a stolen vehicle. And the suspect ultimately, when she was interviewed, basically stated that the reason she ran was she followed a no-stop policy. She was not going to stop for law enforcement. That was a new one. None of us had heard that one before. But
well, it doesn't work either.
Nonetheless, again, it is a challenge. It is something that we look at, we review. I'm sure if the police chief was sitting here, he'd probably be saying the same thing, because we understand the risks and dangers of doing it, and we're trying to balance the individuals that are trying to stop the crimes they may have committed to.
The thing, it just seems to me, with as many wrecks as we have had and deaths over the last couple of years, it's just inevitable that we're going to run over a minivan with a soccer mom and kids, and that is not going to end well.
I understand completely.
It's just almost inevitable that is something like that is going to occur, and it just seems to me like it would be
Well, it's unfortunate too.
I know
that
many counties have instituted that no chase policy.
There's some. I don't know what the exact numbers are, but you'll see it. You'll see speed restrictions and some of those types of things. If you have other assets like air assets and those types of things, can pick it up and get you in a position. But what's truly sad about the whole equation is that we've lost this point of understanding that we have a requirement to comply with law enforcement. And, if an officer is trying to initiate a traffic stop on something simple, you need to stop. This philosophy of running and doing all this type of stuff, we've just kind of lost that. And we see it more and more all the time. I see resisting arrest, I see evading, and those types of things, happening with, seems like greater frequency all the time. And again, our guys are out there and they're trying to make smart decisions based on, who they're dealing with, what they may be dealing with. In terms of trying to, to try to fulfill their law enforcement responsibilities while not, unduly endangering the public.
We're about the end of this segment, and it's been really enjoyed having you on this morning. You have answered a lot of questions. You're tuned into KFYO Mornings with Dave King and Matt Martin. It's 8:15 on this Wednesday morning, and we do have another caller. A caller from El Paso says that she knew a Mexican citizen that had enlisted in the Army here and became a citizen once he left the Army in 1965. And I'm not sure this is under your purview, Sheriff Rowe, but she asked if you can still do that, if that can still happen.
I believe it can. There's been a lot of news to it. Again, I'm no expert on it. I'm not going to cite that I've got great expertise in all the immigration law specifics that have hit since the major changes happened in the mid '60s, but there has been a lot of news I've seen where a lot of talk about individuals that have been allowed to enlist in the military and ultimately go through, and once they complete their time, I think they're fast tracked through the naturalization process and whatnot. So that's more recent news because again it's all part of this broad conversation that the country is having over immigration as a whole.
Well, in a few seconds. We're about to close it up here, and I wanted to give Sheriff Kelly, the floor is yours. Anything you'd like to impart to our audience, please feel free to do so.
Well, no, again, like I said, it's always a pleasure to get to come on and get a chance to visit. We like to talk about what we're doing and the good things that are happening out there. And again, just know that we're doing everything we can with regard to partnerships, great working relationships, because we're all on the same goal of making Lubbock the safest place to raise a family and enjoy a good life. So that's our big focus.
I was just going to want. I don't know that we have time for this, but how bad is the narcotics trafficking in this area?
It's immense. Again, maybe we can get some time, but just the increases we've seen. Yeah. We've seen since 2014, it's astronomical, the amounts of stuff we're seeing coming in and being distributed here locally. It's triggered us to be looking at a number of different initiatives to broaden our capabilities to face that problem more head on. Yeah. But it's huge.
Yeah, we do have to go. Our time is up. Got a hard break that we're facing here at 8:17 on KFYO Mornings with Dave King and Matt Martin. Sheriff Kelly Rowe, Lubbock County, thank you so much. You've been a very interesting guest this morning.